location from Nassau, Bahamas, it's the SmallCapPower Expert Interview. The 2015 President's Club Investment Conference was held in Nassau, Bahamas, and we spoke with Veronika Hirsch, a senior portfolio manager with Arrow Capital Management. In the following interview, she highlights her favorite company at this time, her strategy for investing in oil, and gives her personal tips on choosing smart investments.
Veronika, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So tell us, at the panel discussion you just had, you talked about the resource sector. Can you give us some details?
We've done really well, relatively well this year by completely avoiding all the resources. It's been the very slow growth in China. We don't really know how little the growth is. I'm assuming it's maybe 2-3%. It's very negative on Canada. The perception from foreign investors is that Canadian market is very resourcey, even though we've got companies that are fantastic and have nothing to do with the resources. To a foreign investor, we are a resource market. And it's been very negative in the sense that it's encouraging the foreign investors to short Canada and Canadian dollars. So it's been putting a lot of pressure on the Canadian dollar.
Can you describe the opportunities in the tax sell-offs?
That is an interesting thing. I think, even though I'm still negative on the oil price, I think at some point next year you'll see a bottom. I would be very opportunistically buying high-quality oil companies into the tax sell-off over the next month, so that when oil price does bottom, whenever that is next year, you'll be there and you'll be able to take advantage. But my advice would be buy the best quality possible. Because I think even if oil price bounces to $60, the very poor quality oil companies are still not going to do well.
Veronika, as a successful portfolio manager, what is your investing strategy?
So I have been very thematic my whole life. I look at themes as opposed to, I don't think in terms of industries or, of course, company specific, but not industries. And the most successful theme has been because Canada is lagging behind the U.S. in terms of economic growth. I've been buying Canadian companies that have exposure to the U.S., not necessarily just the U.S. dollar, but the U.S. economy.
Are there any favorite companies that you can mention to our investor audience?
So one of my favorite companies would be CCL because it's a roll-up. So it's a company that started as a small Canadian company and grew out of that niche market that it was in into a global leader in labels. And it's now in Europe and in US, and it's grown by its own, the management's been terrific and they've grown that way. And now is a very successful global companies. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Canadian companies that become global leaders. And so a lot of their business now gets reported in US dollars, gets translated into Canadian dollars, and I get another benefit in that sense.
Is there any advice that you can give to people who want to do what you do?
You would have to think of what your strengths are and what you understand, what you feel comfortable, what you're passionate about, and that's what you would invest in, as opposed to sort of thinking that you have to do what other people do. It's always wrong. You always should kind of concentrate on what you think you're good at. You don't have to be investing in all sorts of things, right? Just being good at a couple of stocks is going to be way more profitable than trying to emulate other people and trying to be investing all over the places that makes no sense to you.
Do you have any lessons that you can pass on to our investor audience?
I would say that you should always go with what you feel comfortable with. You should never be influenced by what other people are telling you. You go to meetings and people say, I've been successful here, there, and everywhere doing X, Y, Z. Forget that. Just do what you're comfortable with. Concentrate on things that you feel comfortable with, and stick with it. And 10 years from now, you would have been rich.
Well, Veronika, thank you so much for
My
all
pleasure.
of that. Thank you. To learn more and also catch some more expert interviews, go to smallcappower.com. I'm Rachel Lee, reporting from the Bahamas at the President's Club Small Cap Conference.
Be sure to see more conference interviews on smallcappower.com/videos.